This is the Range Rover Sport. It sits on air suspension, wraps you in leather that actually feels like leather, and the moment you get behind the wheel, you genuinely feel like you've arrived somewhere. Like the world just got a little quieter. The infotainment is clean, the ride is almost offensively smooth, and whether you're crawling through a muddy trail or pulling up to a valet, this thing looks completely at home doing both. On paper, and honestly even in person, it's hard to argue with. Land Rover built something that hits every emotional button a car buyer has, and that's exactly why I need to talk to you before you go sign anything, because I've had this conversation, not on YouTube, in real life, with people who came to me after the purchase, not before, after, and almost every single one of them had the same energy. It wasn't, "I hate this car." It was more like, "I didn't know it was gonna be like this." That quiet, tired frustration of someone who got exactly what they wanted and still ended up disappointed. That specific feeling, that's what this video is about. So let's actually talk about what owning a Range Rover costs you. Not the sticker price, but the real number, the one Land Rover doesn't put in the brochure. Let's start where most people do, the purchase price. Because even here, the sticker is lying to you a little bit. You're probably looking at a base Range Rover Sport somewhere in the mid-70s, but nobody actually buys the base. The trim levels are designed to make you feel like the base is missing things it shouldn't be missing. And honestly, they're right. The heated steering wheel, the panoramic roof, the upgraded audio, these feel like they should be standard at this price point, and yet somehow they're not. So you start clicking options. You go premium metallic paint because the standard colors look underwhelming on this body. You add the massage seats because you're buying a Range Rover. Come on. You get the 23-inch wheels because the 21s look a little pedestrian on something this imposing. And suddenly that mid-$70,000 car is touching $100,000 before you've driven it off the lot. That's not a catastrophe by itself. If you can genuinely afford a $100,000 car, go for it. But most people buying Range Rovers aren't paying cash for a $100,000 car. They're financing it. And the monthly payment on a vehicle at this price, especially when you factor in what lenders charge for luxury cars, can land somewhere between $1,200 and $1,500 a month depending on your term and rate, every month, before you've thought about anything else. And I say that not to scare you, but because I've seen people absorb that payment and truly not think about what comes next. What comes next is the part Land Rover really doesn't advertise. The Range Rover Sport is a complex machine. It's got air suspension, a twin turbocharged engine, a terrain response system, an electronic active differential, and roughly 4,000 other things that can go wrong. And some of them do go wrong. Not on every car, not immediately, but often enough that there are entire YouTube channels, forums, Reddit threads, and Facebook groups dedicated specifically to people dealing with Range Rover reliability issues. That community exists for a reason. The air suspension alone is a conversation. When it works, it's magic. The car just floats. When it doesn't, you're looking at repairs that can run from $1,200 to $3,000. Sometimes more, depending on whether it's a compressor or an actual airbag that's gone. And this isn't rare. Land Rover has been improving in this area, but they still consistently rank near the bottom of reliability surveys. Not dead last always, but reliably in that bottom tier year after year. Now here's where I want you to sit with something for a second. If something breaks on your Toyota Camry, you've got options. You can take it to a dealership, an independent mechanic down the street, a chain shop. Multiple people can work on that car, and the part competition keeps prices reasonable. If something breaks on your Range Rover, your options shrink dramatically. You almost certainly need a Land Rover dealer or a specialist. The parts are expensive because the demand is lower and the engineering is more complex. A brake job that costs $400 on a normal car costs over $1,000 on this one. An oil change that's $30 at a quick lube is $250 at the dealer. And none of that is necessarily wrong. It's a premium product, but people buy it thinking about the sticker price and not about what the next 5 years actually looks like. If and when you let this car go, and statistically most luxury car buyers cycle out within 3 to 5 years, you're going to discover something uncomfortable about what this car was worth the day you bought it versus what it's worth when you try to sell it. Range Rovers are not investments. They lose value at a rate that would make a financial advisor physically wince. A Sport that you paid $90,000 for is going to be worth somewhere around $45,000 to $55,000 in 3 years, if you're keeping it in good condition and mileage in check. That's $35,000 to $45,000 that just dissolved, gone. And that's in a normal market. If there's any kind of economic shift or a new generation comes out, that number can be worse. By the way, if you're finding this useful, hit that subscribe button. I do this for every major vehicle, and if you're shopping right now, there's probably already a video here that can save you from a decision you'll regret. Let me talk about something that doesn't get brought up enough, which is the psychological cost of owning a car like this. When you buy a Range Rover, you buy into a certain level of visibility. People see this car, you see this car, and there's a subtle but real pressure that comes with that. that. When something breaks, and statistically something probably will, it feels worse than it would on a lesser car because you spent so much. There's an embarrassment to sitting in a luxury SUV waiting for a tow truck. There's an irritation to paying for a loaner car at the dealer while yours sits in service for 3 days. These aren't financial costs on paper, but they're real costs in terms of your time, your energy, and your relationship with a car you were excited about. I've talked to people who bought Range Rovers and loved them for about 8 months. Then something broke, then something else, and by year 2, they were daydreaming about their old Honda Pilot. Not because the Range Rover wasn't a nicer car, it absolutely was, but because the Honda never made them anxious. There's a version of car ownership where the nicest car isn't the best experience because it carries too much worry with it. Now, I'm not here to just talk you out of the Range Rover and call it a day. That's not the conversation I want to have, because here's the truth. There are people for whom the Range Rover Sport makes total financial sense. If you're buying it gently used, let's say 3 years old with under 30,000 miles, you've let the first owner absorb the worst of that value drop. You're getting in at maybe 50 to 60,000 instead of 90, and the car is still under warranty if you time it right or if you buy a certified pre-owned. That changes the math considerably. You're not eliminating the running costs, but you're not starting at 100,000 with negative equity before you leave the parking lot either. There's also a version of this car ownership that works if you're genuinely buying it as a vehicle you'll keep for a long time. People who buy these and drive them for 8 to 10 years, who stay on top of service, who use independent Land Rover specialists rather than the dealer for routine work, those people often come out okay. It's the people who treat it like a 3-year lease and then discover they've lost $50,000 who end up frustrated. And if what you're really after is that premium SUV feeling, the elevated driving position, the luxury interior, the road presence, there are alternatives worth test driving before you commit. The Genesis GV80 sits in a similar visual space and costs 30% less to buy and significantly less to run. The Lexus GX is less glamorous but historically bulletproof. The BMW X5 gives you a lot of what the Range Rover offers dynamically at a lower entry point with better reliability numbers. None of them are a Range Rover. I'm not going to pretend they are, but the question is whether the Range Rover is worth the premium to you after you've seen all the numbers. Here's how I'd think about this if I were sitting across from you and you were seriously considering one of these. First, run the total cost of ownership calculation, not just the payment, but add up what you expect to spend per year on everything, including the unexpected stuff. Build in a buffer for repairs because the data says you should. Then ask yourself what that number looks like divided by 12 and whether that's genuinely comfortable in your budget. Not, I can make it work comfortable, but I won't feel this comfortable. There's a big difference. Second, if you're financing this car, think hard about what a total cost that high means for your other financial goals. A $1,500 a month car payment that you're stretching to make is a decision you're making for everything else too. It's money not going into investments, not paying down a house, not sitting in savings. Third, and this is the one people skip, go join one of those Range Rover owner forums before you buy and spend an hour reading threads from people who already own the exact trim you're looking at. Not to scare yourself, but to get a realistic picture from people who are living with the car right now.